Morning. So there was one night, my wife Megan and I, we were watching television, and our son Landon comes running into the room, and he screams. Said, "There's something in my bed." I said, "Hold on, what?" He said, "There's something in my bed. It's moving everywhere." I said, "Hold on a second. What? There's something? Yeah, there's something." And he is freaking out. He goes, "Dad, I think it's a mouse. I think there is a mouse in my bed." And so I said, "All right, well, let's go figure out what it is." I go in there, and I can definitely see something just pacing back and forth in this bed. And I'm going, I don't know what's in here. So I'm trying to figure it out. Come to find out, it was our smallest, tiniest cat, Luna, had gotten trapped in the box spring and could not figure her way. She found her way in, could not find her way out at all. And so she's just searching and searching and searching for a way out. The cat is completely stuck. Completely stuck. No way out. And I thought, this is kind of the situation that, if we're being really honest with ourselves, that a lot of us find ourselves in a lot. Is that there is something in your life, some sort of habit, some sort of hang-up, some sort of hiccup, some sort of sin, behavior, cycle that just continues to repeat over and over, and you feel trapped. You feel like you are stuck, that you are in some sort of bondage, that you go, no matter what I do, I can't seem to get out. You feel a lot like that cat. You're just running back and forth, trying to find the way out all on your own. And what keeps happening is you keep ending up right back where you started. You keep going, I can't, in my own strength, in my own power, I can't seem to shake loose. I can't seem to get free. This is probably something that all of us, in one way or another, you can go, yes, there is something in my life that feels like I am stuck, that I keep coming back to it, that I keep having to struggle with it over and over and over and over. I keep praying about it, I keep giving it to God, and then I keep picking it right back up. There's something in my life where I just feel stuck, or where I just feel like something is holding me still. This is common for us. But it's also common that when we look into the scriptures, we see the people of God, Israel, over and over in the Old Testament, in some sort of bondage. In some sort of, there's been a nation come and take them over and enslave them. Over and over and over, there's a drumbeat of the people of God continue to find themselves in this situation. And no matter what they do, no matter how hard they try, they cannot shake themselves free. They cannot seem to loosen the chains that are holding them down whatsoever. And I know, you've been there. You try and you try and you pray and you pray and you go, why do I keep struggling with this? You fill in the blank. Why do I keep running to relationships like this? Why do I keep having issues in my finances like this? Why do I keep struggling with this sin? Why do I keep going back to this well? Why have I not overcome this addiction yet? This, whatever it is, over and over and over, you keep going, why do I feel like I'm all bound up? And so I want to show you today that if that's you, if you feel like you're stuck with some sort of hiccup, hang-up, habit, addiction, sin, whatever you want to fill in the blank with, that I want to show you today that there is a way out. That there is a way out. So we learned last time in 1 Samuel that Samuel had asked, or the Israelites had asked for a king, and Samuel anoints Saul as the king of Israel. But Israel's monarchy is in its infancy. It's just starting. They're not yet collecting taxes to have a palace for the king. Or it's just getting off the ground. And we read in 1 Samuel chapter 11, beginning in verse 1, it says this: about a month later, King Nahash of Ammon led his army against the Israelite town of Jabesh Gilead. But all the citizens of Jabesh had asked for peace. Make a treaty with us, and we will be your servants, they pleaded. Now, there's a good chance that this story about Saul and his success happens at this point in the text, because starting next week, we're going to see Saul head in a completely different direction. that Saul's going to end up losing the blessing of God in his life. He's going to end up losing his kingdom. We're going to get to that. But this week we get to see Saul actually as the king of Israel doing what the king of Israel was always meant to do. And we find the people of Jabesh Gilead, a town of Israel, are surrounded by their enemies. They know they're getting ready to get overtaken. And here's their great idea, which completely breaks everything that God had told them about making treaties with the enemy once they got into the promised land. They were not meant to do this whatsoever. They were meant to trust God. They were not supposed to go and make deals with the enemy. They were not supposed to try to compromise with the enemy. And this is what they do. They go to them and go, how about this? Instead of you slaughtering us, we will become your servants. We will become your servants. And once again, Israel, this time just a portion of Israel, the people of Jabesh Gilead, find themselves in bondage, in slavery. How many times, though, when it comes to these habits or sins or things that we are trapped in, how often do we find ourselves trying to negotiate with them? Like, man, if we could just get it to a point where it's manageable. If we could just get it to a point where I don't do it all the time, just maybe some of the times. If we could just get it to a point where it's not affecting my work anymore. If we could just get it to can we make we're trying to make deals with the enemy. And we go, well, that's fine. You can enslave me, but can you just make it not so bad? And we're willing to compromise with the enemy. But why is it that God's people, especially Israel in the Old Testament, find themselves over and over and over again in bondage? And every time it is linked to them turning their back on God to follow after other gods. Every single time, all throughout the book of Judges, all throughout Joshua, all throughout the rest of the history of Israel, when the people of God turn from God to other idols, begin to worship other gods, they are then enslaved by something. This happens in your life. When you turn your back on God and choose to put your affections and your attentions on something else, even while all the while attending church, serving at church, giving at church, praying, doing your Bible study, but your affection has gone somewhere else, you will end up enslaved and still be in church. You will end up enslaved to whatever it is that actually has captured your heart, even though you keep going through the routine of religion. You will find yourself in bondage just like these people. Now, here's what I see. When we want to make a treaty with the enemy, when we want to make a bargain with our sin, when we're trying to make things manageable rather than trying to get rid of it, here's what I see. First and foremost, we see that Israel did not trust God. They did not trust God to set them free. And I wonder how much of us, we stay stuck and we stay in patterns of destruction because at the end of the day, we still do not believe that God can actually set us free. Like you've heard it for other people, but because you haven't experienced it, you're wondering, can God actually do it for me? Can things actually be? So I think that there's a trust issue that's going on when we start making deals with the devil, when we start making deals with our sin and our issues. I think there's a trust issue. The other thing is, I don't know how many of us fully understand the power of sin. Like sin always shows up real small and innocent. Oh, it's just a little compromise here. It's just a little idolatry here. It's just a little bit here or there. But then what happens is, even though it shows up small and innocent, it has this growing effect to where it always ends up taking you so much further than you ever thought. Like you'll find yourself way down the road that sin will take you, and you'll ask yourself this question: how in the world did I get here? How did I get in this situation? It's a lot like, do you guys remember this book growing up? If you give a mouse a cookie, y'all remember this? This is the best picture of sin I've ever seen. Listen to this. Like if you give a mouse a cookie, he's going to ask for a glass of milk. When you give him the milk, he's going to ask for a straw. And when he's finished, he'll ask for a napkin. Then he'll look in the mirror and realize wants to make sure he doesn't have a milk mustache. When he looks into the mirror, he'll notice that his hair needs a trim. So he'll ask for a pair of scissors. He'll give himself a shave, and a trim, and when he's done, he'll ask for a broom. He'll start sweeping. He might get carried away and sweep the whole house, and then he might even wash the floors. And when he's done, he'll probably take a nap. You'll have to fix up a little box for him with a blanket and a pillow, and he'll crawl in and make himself comfortable and fluff the pillow a few times. Can I tell you that some of your all sins and some of your addictions and some of your hang-ups have already moved into your house? They've moved in. They're in the process of getting comfortable right now. He'll probably ask you to read him a story. So you'll read him from one of your books, and he'll ask to see the pictures. And when he looks at the pictures, he'll get excited. He'll want to draw one of his own. So he wants paper and crayons, and then he'll draw a picture. And then when the picture's finished, he'll want to sign his name with a pen. And then he'll want to hang it onto the refrigerator, which means he'll need Scotch tape. And he'll hang up the drawing and stand back and look at it. Looking at the refrigerator will remind him that he's thirsty. So he'll ask for a glass of milk. And chances are, if he asks for a glass of milk, he's going to want a cookie to go with it. This is what's happening. Every time that you give sin an inch in your life, it will take a mile. Every time you have a little bit of compromise, you will end up so far down the road going, I don't really know how we got here. I don't fully understand how it just started with this, and now we're here. It started with a look, and now we're sitting in front of lawyers wondering how we're going to divide our assets. Oh, it started with just cutting corners at work, and now I'm sitting in front of a prosecutor. Like, how did it go from something so small, and now we're so far down the road? Because sin always grows. This is the problem with trying to make deals with the enemy. Because here's the deal. If you want to make a deal with the enemy, understand that the enemy always wants to make a deal with you. Oh, he's been waiting for this. He doesn't need you to just fully give him up. He just needs you to give him just a little bit. Because here's what happens in verse 2. The enemy answers, all right, but only on one condition. I will gouge out the right eye of every one of you as a disgrace to all of Israel. Oh, we'll make a deal. I'll make a deal with you, but it's going to cost you. What's it going to cost you? Here's what it was going to cost Israel. Yes, it's going to be a disgrace to all of Israel for that whole town to have lost their right eye. They're going to be permanently marked by this. My guess is some of us were walking around right now with marks on us in our souls, in our minds, in our emotions, and on our bodies from times that we decided to compromise with the enemy. The marks are still there. But here's what it's really going to cost you. See, I was reading a commentary this week that said the big deal here, the reason why they would want to gouge out the right eye is it would not render the Israelites unable to still serve them. So they could go and they could grow crops because this is their agricultural. They could raise cattle. They could still serve them. It would render them more ineffective when it came to fighting. See, what the enemy wants to do is to put you into a situation that you can serve him but not fight him. He wants to rob you of your ability to actually push back and fight back. And that's what's happening here. Oh, we'll make a deal. Let me put you into a situation where you finally and fully feel so helpless that you'll stop fighting altogether. That's what he wants to happen. Verse 3. Give us 7 days to send messengers throughout all of Israel, replied the elders of Jabesh. And if no one comes to save us, we agree to your terms. How rough a shape do you have to be in to agree to those terms? It probably sounds a lot like, you know what? If we can just make it bearable, I'll do it. I'll continue to serve my idols and be enslaved by them as long as it's just not too bad. Just a little bit. Like, we'll be your servants. Just don't destroy us. They didn't see a way out. They felt trapped. Just like that cat felt trapped, they felt trapped. They're going, I don't see a way out. And so their plan is, we're going to send messengers throughout all of Israel and see if anyone will come save us. See if anyone will step up. So the messenger came to Gibeah of Saul and told the people about their plight, and everyone broke into tears. Saul had been plowing a field with his oxen, and when he returned to town, he asked, What's the matter? Why is everyone crying? So they told him about the message from Jabesh. Remember, the monarchy at this time is in its infancy. So Saul is at his house taking care of the yard. He's plowing up a field. The messenger gets there. Hey, Jabesh Gilead is under attack. They need someone to come and save them, or else they are going to be enslaved. They are going to be in bondage to this foreign nation, the Ammonites. They're going to be enslaved. They need someone to rise up and fight for them. Verse 6 says this, Then the Spirit of God came powerfully upon Saul, and he became very angry. He took 2 oxen and cut them into pieces and sent the messengers to carry them throughout all of Israel. This is what will happen to the oxen of anyone who refuses to follow Saul and Samuel into battle. And the Lord made the people afraid of Saul's anger, and all of them came out together as one. And when Saul mobilized them at Bezek, he found out that there was 300,000 men from Israel and 30,000 men from Judah. This is Saul at his absolute best. So Saul sent the messengers back to Jabesh Gilead and said this, We will rescue you by noontime tomorrow. There was great joy throughout the town when the message arrived. So in less than a week, Saul is able to get an army together of 330,000 willing people to go and to fight for these folks that are getting ready to be enslaved and in bondage. Through the power of the Spirit, through the timing of the Spirit, Saul is able to do this. See, you feel trapped, you feel stuck. You feel all alone, literally like a cat stuck in a box spring, searching for a way out. But here's what happened that night. The Landon came into our room and said, Dad, I think something's in my bed. So I go look at it. I go and I figure out that it's the cat. And I take that bed and I turn it up on its side. And I find the tiniest hole that I can in that little fabric on the bottom of it, and I take it and I rip it. I rip it open and that cat goes free. So here's what I see right here. Saul gathers up this army, and he says, send the message to tell the people that are in bondage, that are trapped, that are stuck, that don't know how they're going to get out of the mess that they've made. Tell them that help is on the way, that the king knows about it, and now that the king knows, he's coming to fight on your behalf. Whatever that situation, see, I thought there'd be more than one person that's excited that the king knows about your issue, and he is sending help. There's no addiction, no sin, no problem, nothing beyond the power of the king. When the king finds out about it, you can be free. Who the Son sets free is free indeed. There is nothing that this king cannot do. Help is on the way. You feel stuck, you feel trapped, the king is on his way. The king is on his way, he knows. And he is bringing an army for your help, for your victory. Oh, but wasn't it these people in Jabesh Gilead, wasn't it their fault that they're in this situation in the first place? Yeah. And on some level, it's your fault that you're in that situation. It's my fault when I find myself in that situation. But guess what? The king isn't really concerned that it's your fault. He's on his way anyways. He knows that you got yourself into that situation, and he's on his way anyways. Yeah, you're in a bad situation. Yeah, but the king knows, and he's coming. No matter who you are, what you have done, your past does not exclude you from this. The sin that you struggle with, the type of sin that you struggle with does not exclude you from this. The king knows, and he is on his way. You're not alone. That cat felt alone. The cat wasn't alone. You're not alone. I'll never forget, when I hit my rock bottom in 2010, I thought, there's no way. There's no way that there's any way out of this. I've screwed up too much. I'm so far beyond. Like, I was raised better than this. I know better than this. I've made an absolute wreck of my life, an absolute mess of my life. There's no way that God has anything left for me. I've said no too many times. And even then, 2010, I had no clue that help was on its way. That the king was on his way to set me free. Verse 10 says this, "Then the men of Jabesh told their enemies, 'Tomorrow we will come out to you, and you can do to us whatever you wish.' But before dawn the next morning, Saul arrived. Having divided his army into 3 detachments, he launched a surprise attack against the Ammonites and slaughtered them the whole morning. The remnant of their army was so badly scattered that no 2 of them were left together." Here's what's beautiful. Because you think that whatever it is that's got you held in bondage, whatever that enemy is that is holding you up, my guess, you think a lot like the people of Jabesh Gilead. You think a lot like me when I'm in that situation. Man, this is just too big. This is an enemy. This is a formidable enemy. But when the king shows up, his enemies are scattered to where there's not even 2 of them that can be found together. The victory is so unbelievably decisive and complete when the king comes to fight on your behalf. There is not an enemy too big. There is not an addiction too big. There is not a brokenness too large. There is not a cycle of sin that cannot be broken when the king shows up. Now, last week, or 2 weeks ago, when we were covering Saul's call to being king, we didn't get to the part that after he was anointed as king, there was a group of people who the scriptures say in chapter 10, whose hearts were with Saul. So he had some supporters. He also had a group of people, it says in 10:27, that doubted him. They actually said, "Can Saul actually set us free? Can Saul really defend us? Can he really deliver us?" There are doubts as to whether Saul can really do this. When Saul shows up on the scene in chapter 11 and decimates the enemy, there is no longer any doubt if Saul can save, if Saul can deliver, if through the power of the Spirit, if Saul can set you free. There was doubt, but there's no longer any doubts. In one way, when there's doubters that are proven to be fools, what happens is the other person becomes vindicated. They go, "And what I said was true." And like Samuel is vindicated. When he says Saul's God's guy, they go, "We don't think he is." When Saul comes in and wins, he's vindicated in that moment. That everything that Samuel said was true about Saul absolutely was true about Saul. So here's what happens in verse 12. The people exclaimed to Samuel, "Now, where are those men who said, 'Why should Saul rule over us?' Bring them here, and we will kill them." So after this battle, the supporters of Saul are like, "Yo, where are those bums that said Saul couldn't do it? Where are all the people that stood on the sidelines and said, 'Saul can't set us free. Saul can't deliver us. Saul's not strong enough. Saul's not God's God'? Where are all those people? Let's put them to death." They had gone against the king. The punishment for going against the king? Death. Then look what Saul says next. But Saul replied, "No one will be executed today, for today the Lord has rescued Israel." So something that's hiding in this text, as well as all the texts that we're getting ready to go through in 1 Samuel, 2 Samuel, we'll get into the kings and all that at some point in the coming years. But something that's hidden in this, it's a language thing that may miss a lot of us, is that what happened in 1 Samuel 10, 9 and 10, when Saul gets called to be the king, Samuel shows up and anoints him as God's anointed one. The king of Israel was always to be God's anointed one. When we meet David here in just a couple of chapters, Samuel's going to anoint him with a flask of oil because the king was God's anointed. The phrase, the anointed one, is pretty common in our New Testament church because it's actually the phrase Messiah. The Messiah is the anointed one. In this story, when you see Israel's king, you see Israel's Messiah at this time. He's the anointed one. He's the one that comes to save. And save he does. He shows up and decimates his enemies. What we see in this story, because remember the doubters deserved death. They didn't want to follow Saul. They didn't think Saul was up to it. They said they should die. Saul steps in and goes, no. They're not going to pay for that. I'm not going to allow that. God's Messiah, what we see in this story is that God's Messiah pardons the doubters and shows mercy to his enemies. Pardons the doubters and shows mercy to his enemies. See, this whole story is actually pointing to a far greater king. To a far greater king who also had his own doubters. Maybe you remember the story when Jesus of Nazareth steps onto the scene. He's calling people to come and follow him. One of the disciples looks at the other and says, "Can anything good come from Nazareth?" They said, "This Jesus guy that y'all are saying is the Messiah, that he's God's anointed, that he is the King of Israel, he's from Nazareth. He's from the wrong side of the tracks. He ain't nothing." There was doubters. He was out preaching to thousands and performing miracles, and everywhere he went, doubters. Oh, he's not the real thing. Everywhere Jesus went, he claimed to be the Son of Man, which was a royal term from Daniel chapter 7. He's the one that eventually the Father was going to give all glory and honor and dominion to one day. He's going around claiming, "I am the anointed one. I am the king." And they doubted him over and over. "No, you're not. No, you're not, Jesus. We know your parents. You're Mary and Joe's boy. You ain't nothing." So much so that eventually he's arrested. And at that moment, when he's arrested, all his doubters are going, "See, he's no king. He can't save. He can't deliver. He can't set free. He's in bondage himself." The Romans decided to have a little bit of fun with this as well because they didn't think he was the Son of God. They didn't think that he was the Son of Man. They didn't think that he was Israel's king. So they decided to mock him, and they put a purple robe on him and a crown of thorns on his head and put a sign above him on the cross that said, "Here is the King of Israel, King of the Jews." They were mocking him. There was doubters, and there was all sorts of doubters until Sunday morning when the king was vindicated. When everything he ever said and ever did was vindicated, that God says, "Yes, this was my anointed, and yes, he can save. Yes, he can deliver. Yes, he can set free." And that's what the king of Israel was always meant to do. We get to see it one time. This was how it could have always been for Saul, but Saul's going to turn his back on God next week. That's how it could have always been. But this is a victory. Saul sets these people free. But don't miss this. The people of Jabesh Gilead, they did not deserve this. You and I, we're stuck, we're trapped like a cat in a box spring. We don't deserve it. Because we did it. We did the crime, so we need to pay the time. We did it. We're guilty. But Saul didn't go, "I'm sorry, Jabesh Gilead. You need to get your crap together before I come down there and save you. You need to stop messing around. You need to stop, get your life right, and then I'll come and save you." No, this is not how Saul handled things, because this is not how God handles it. God does not come and set you free because you deserve it. That's right. God sets you free because you need it. I didn't deserve it. I still don't deserve it. You don't deserve it, but you need it. You need to be set free. A couple months ago, my son's baseball team was playing in Ohio, and they won a huge championship. There was a 14-team tournament. We were the only team there from West Virginia. We're beating up on all these teams from Ohio. The championship game was late on a Sunday night. We've got a banner. We got a championship belt. It's a big deal. They're taking pictures for 20 minutes. And in the chaos after that game, my son left his baseball bag at that field in Ohio, and we did not realize it for about an hour. And if you know anything about the baseball bags currently, those are like little gold mines. And if somebody sees that little gold mine, they know it's a gold mine, and they're going to take up and walk off with it. So that bag was gone. And my son had a tournament next week. We were talking to him the whole way home and throughout that week. I said, you really messed this up, man. You messed this up. But all that stuff in there, it's replaceable. And me and your mom are going to replace it. We're going to make sure that you have what you need. Not because you deserve it, but because you need it. Not because you deserve it, but because you need it. The same is true with your freedom, with your deliverance. He doesn't give it to you because you deserve it. He gives it to you because you need it. Because that's what good fathers do. They don't give you all the stuff that you deserve. They give you what it is that you need. Even when you're the guilty party. Even when you're the guilty party, he gives it to you anyways. Jesus, the better Saul. The anointed one, the Messiah, the King of Israel. Jesus is the better Saul, who doesn't have a dark chapter in his history, who was vindicated through his resurrection that he really was who he said that he was. And I'm telling you, if you feel like today that you are trapped, that you are in bondage, and that you need to be set free, listen to me, the King is on his way. The King is on his way, and he is able to set you free. He is able to make you new. What he did on that cross paid the price for your sins. What he did when he vacated that tomb made a way for you to become a new creation. If you want to put your faith and trust in Jesus, you want to ask him to set you free. Maybe you've prayed that prayer 1,000 times. You go, I don't know if it's working. I'm still struggling. I'm still stuck. Listen, the King is on his way. Help is on his way to set you free. Let today be the day that you get set free.